da się powiedzieć, od razu odpowiedzieć. Trzeba się zastanowić. Ja rozumiem.
So, it's those faith conversations that we're having. That's what makes Igor and his ministry, what he's doing, what he's leading his church to do, because they have the women with the children whose husbands are fighting, whose fathers are fighting, who come to Poland for safety and security. They have the same questions, the same fears, the same insecurities, the same anger, the same, can we say, hatred, whatever it may be. And when we were there Sunday morning, he had a guest speaker, but I know that the kind of the central focus of the message was God changing and transforming our hearts, that we would not follow into the pattern of the world, that we would not follow the example and even respond the way they do, but that he would do something unique in us and the way that we live, showing a different trend. So talk about Igor, what's the ministry that he's doing, especially, you know, to those Ukrainian refugees. Yeah.
So Igor, 29 years old, and when the war started, he and his small congregation, there were 20 of them, average age around 24, 25, all came together, pooled $10 in your savings account, $15 in your savings account, and began going to and from the border. Literally just bringing people back, saying, we don't know where we're going to put you, we're going to put you in the church for now, we're going to figure something out. And Igor and his team, they provide care and support to anyone. It doesn't matter what their background was, what their belief systems are or are not. So they, out of those initial efforts, they now run and maintain 5 shelters that houses on average around 150. They have since started a preschool. That's what we would liken it to. Yep. 5 days a week, and these children are getting Bible lessons, but they're also getting language classes, so Polish and English classes, yep. Ukrainian literature, math, and science. So Igor quit, he was bivocational, yeah. So he quit his full-time paying job, he's a handyman, and has just dedicated himself for the last year 100% to his ministry. They also have opened up the church, as he said to me in October last year, the doors of this church need to be open 7 days a week. So Igor and his team are sending food to the eastern part, southern part of Ukraine that's hardest hit, and they are targeting those small groups of people that may not be receiving aid from some of these larger organizations.
He's provided us some footage of young guys in his church who were able to cross into Ukraine, who are actually going into the hot zones, the front line, hand delivering this stuff on their shoulders, on their, and it's phenomenal.
And Matt and I were expressing, like, man, we really wish we could go to Ukraine, but it's a whole issue with a car. What are we going to do?
Take our van.
Igor's like, here.
Yeah. And explain that, Matt. This is not just, hey, here's my keys, you can borrow my van.
Yeah.
There's a legal process.
Oh, there's a huge legal process. So you and I just can't zip across over to Ukraine in a rental car, right? You've got to own the van outright. It cannot be on a bank loan. Yeah. You've got to own it outright. And essentially, we go to a lawyer's office. Igor signs the church van over to me. I'm the owner of the vehicle.
Yeah.
And we're able, and we've done that twice now. Or 3 times now.
Yeah, 3
times now. And you know, this is a man I didn't even know at this time last year. This is a person I did not know he walked this earth.
Yeah.
And now he's giving me the keys to an asset. He's not a wealthy man. The church is not wealthy.
Yes.
Giving me one of his possessions. Take it and go do God's work.
And so this really is, especially for those, you know, at our church and other churches and all that are saying, okay, how does this connect to the Great Commission? You know, first of all, anything humanitarian connects to the words of Jesus. You know, when I was hungry, you fed me. In fact, Igor said it.
Yeah.
He kept saying that up. He said, I just see what Jesus says. When you were hungry, you fed me. When I was thirsty, you gave me something to drink. When I was naked, you clothed me. You housed me. When I was in prison or captive, you came and visited. He said, I think to do anything less is unethical, immoral, and non-Christian. So that's the basis. But then he also says, and we're to carry the good news. And people in the middle of the war need good news. They're not forgotten. God is with them. You know, God is working. God will do something. And so he's able to accomplish all of that. I mean, it really is a holistic, from one end to the other, you know, gospel. It is the gospel of Jesus Christ in the middle of a country that is absolutely being torn apart.
I think one of the biggest takeaways for me with that church service, you know, they say that his church is called God's Light in English. And, you know, Jesus says to love your neighbor. And if that's not an example of doing what Jesus said, I don't know what is. I think another thing that really I took away from his church is, you know, all these women are coming down to pray for their husbands during the altar call or what have you. And he was on the microphone, he speaks very limited English. Patrick, you are pastor, come pray. You know, get up here. You know, you know, that something about that stirred my heart. Like, I've never met you. We have never spoken. Because we got to church late.
We got to church really. We got to church very late, really late, right in the middle. First time I ever.
That's right. Thanks, rental car company.
No, we're keeping it. We're keeping it real. We're keeping it real. Rolling in like.
And he does. He's never known. He just assumes you are Patrick because you're standing with Lauren. Patrick, come down here.
Well, I wanted to ask you. I'm curious what that experience was like for you, and. He's never had that altar call. And all the times that I've been there. So, and I just think that the timing of that was so providential that happens on a day when you were there, and then he calls you up, and I'm curious what that experience was like for you.
And you know, I could have prayed with them in English. I'm sure that God would have done what only God can do. But I think it does something to hear the words that are being prayed over them or being prayed on their behalf. You know, so I wanted the interpreter there to be sure that they knew the prayers that I was offering on their behalf. I'm never numb to the fact that how can God use me when I'm not in this environment, when I do not know their language and I don't fully know what they're going through, but yet through prayer and just empathy and just compassion and just trying to put yourself in their position, and then leaning on the Holy Spirit. Because there are times, you know, those prayers were very unique for the person I was praying, and I do believe that's the Holy Spirit that does that gives you those words in that moment. He says, you know, when you stand before kings and judges and you're kind of thrown in those situations, of course that context was when you're thrown on trial. Don't worry about what you have to say. The Holy Spirit will give you those words in those moments. That really is kind of being thrown on trial. You know, they're needing to hear from God. This is a man of God, please tell me there's something. Kind of moment. And I think the Holy Spirit does give you those words in those moments. You don't really prepare for that. You prepare every single day, and then you're used in that. You know, it's that moment.
During that time, there was a young man, I won't call his name. I saw this, and it kind of chokes me up. But he doesn't speak English well at all, the young man we spoke with. And you may not have seen it, but I was standing up against the wall while you were walking around person to person praying, and there was no translator available, and he just walked up to you and grabbed you by the arm and said,
yes.
And he's like, pray for me.
And
he probably didn't understand what you were saying. But he just recognized you were a pastor and said, pray for me.